The vast Imperial ship hung in space like a metallic predator, its sensors focused on the blue planet below. Admiral Grant of the Imperial Scout Fleet watched the holographic display with growing concern. His crew had spent 3 months observing this previously unknown world called Earth, and what they discovered disturbed him deeply. "My lord," his second-in-command spoke up, "the humans have achieved nuclear technology in less than a century after discovering powered flight. Their rate of advancement is unprecedented." Grant nodded slowly. The humans were advancing too quickly. In the Empire's experience, species usually took thousands of years to progress through technological stages. But these humans? They were different. Dangerous. "Show me their conflicts again," Grant ordered. The holographic display shifted, showing various human wars throughout history. The Empire had accessed Earth's primitive information network, what the humans called the Internet, and what they found was troubling. These creatures had fought countless wars among themselves, developing increasingly efficient ways to kill each other. "They've had 2 global wars," the analyst pointed out. "And despite that, they've continued to advance. Most species would have destroyed themselves." Grant made his decision. As per Imperial protocol, any potential threat to the Empire must be reported to the High Council. He couldn't ignore the warning signs, the rapid technological progress, the warlike nature, the remarkable ability to survive and adapt. Within days, the High Council convened in their grand chamber on the Imperial capital world. 12 ancient beings, representatives of the first species to achieve space travel, sat in judgment of humanity's fate. "These humans," the head counselor spoke, his voice echoing in the chamber, "they advance too quickly. They fight too well. They adapt too easily. If left unchecked, they could become a serious threat to Imperial stability." The evidence was clear. Human entertainment alone showed their obsession with space travel and interstellar warfare. Their science fiction revealed their ambitions. Even more concerning was their ability to unite against common threats, despite their internal divisions. "We must act now," another counselor declared, "while we still hold the technological advantage. In a few centuries, they might become too powerful to control." The vote was unanimous. Earth would be given one chance to surrender peacefully and join the Empire as a subject world. If they refused, they would face the consequences. The Empire's message was broadcast simultaneously on all Earth's communication channels. Every television, radio, and digital device received the same transmission. A towering figure in ornate robes, speaking in perfect English. "People of Earth, we are the Galactic Empire, rulers of 5,000 worlds across this galaxy. We have observed your rapid advancement and warlike nature. You stand at a crossroads. Submit to Imperial rule, and you will be granted a place among our subject worlds. Resist, and you will face the full might of the Imperial fleet. You have 48 hours to surrender your weapons and pledge allegiance to the Empire. Choose wisely." The message sent shockwaves through human society. For the first time in history, all nations faced a common threat that couldn't be ignored or negotiated with. Emergency meetings were held in every capital city. The United Nations convened its largest ever emergency session. What the Empire didn't know was that humans had been preparing for this moment for decades. Hidden bunkers, secret weapons programs, and contingency plans existed in every major nation. The possibility of hostile alien contact had been taken seriously by military planners worldwide. In Washington, London, Moscow, Beijing, and other capitals, military commanders opened sealed orders marked "First Contact, Hostile." Underground facilities hummed to life. Hidden satellites activated. Dormant defense systems awakened. The world's response came not from any single nation, but from a hastily assembled Earth Defense Council. Their message was brief. "To the Galactic Empire, humanity acknowledges your message. Our response is this: we will not surrender our sovereignty. We will not submit to threats. We choose to fight, and we warn you. Throughout our history, humanity has faced many who thought us easy to conquer. They all learned otherwise. We suggest you study our history more carefully before you proceed. Earth stands united, and we are ready. As the message was transmitted, military forces worldwide moved to high alert. The first unified human defense force was forming, ready to face whatever came next. The Empire had made a crucial mistake. They had given humanity time to prepare, and more importantly, they had given humans something they'd never had before, a reason to stand together. The war was about to begin. The Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace in waves, thousands of warships darkening Earth's orbit. Their silver hulls gleamed in the sunlight, a display of power meant to terrify the humans into submission. Admiral Grant stood on his command bridge, expecting to see panic in the planetary defenses below. Instead, the humans surprised them. "My lord," his sensor officer called out, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the planet's dark side." Before Grant could respond, hundreds of hidden satellites activated simultaneously. They had been disguised as space debris, a clever trick that had fooled the Empire's initial surveys. These satellites now released clouds of smart mines, creating a deadly defensive web around Earth. The Imperial fleet's frontline ships moved forward, their automated defense systems ready to deal with primitive human weapons. But these mines were different. They contained reverse-engineered technology from a crashed Imperial scout ship the humans had recovered decades ago. The first explosion caught everyone by surprise. Then another and another. Imperial ships began falling into defensive formations, but the mines were learning, adapting their attack patterns. They had been programmed with human military tactics, unpredictable, aggressive, and ruthlessly effective. "Impossible," Grant shouted as he watched 30 ships disappear in coordinated explosions. They couldn't have this level of technology. But the mines were just the beginning. From Earth's surface, hundreds of small, fast craft launched into space. They were unlike anything in Imperial records. Ships designed specifically to exploit the weaknesses in Imperial defenses the humans had learned from studying the crashed scout ship. "Sir, they're vessels. They're not following any known combat doctrine," the tactical officer reported, confusion clear in his voice. They're using formation patterns we've never seen before." The human ships darted between the larger Imperial vessels, too small and quick to be targeted effectively. They attacked in seemingly random patterns, striking from unexpected angles, coordinating in ways that confused the Empire's AI combat systems. In the first hour alone, the Empire lost 200 ships. The humans were fighting dirty, using electromagnetic pulses to disable Imperial shields, deploying sonic weapons that disrupted crew concentration, and launching cyber attacks that turned Imperial targeting systems against their own ships. On Earth, military commanders watched with grim satisfaction. Decades of preparing for this moment were paying off. Every major nation had contributed their best technologies and tactics to this defense. Chinese stealth systems, American cyber warfare, Russian electronic warfare, and countless other innovations had been combined into a unified defense strategy. Admiral Grant received frantic messages from his ship commanders. The Imperial fleet's formations were breaking down. Their sophisticated AI combat systems, designed to fight traditional space battles, couldn't adapt fast enough to human warfare tactics. The humans fought like no species they had ever encountered. They didn't follow the rules of space combat. They made their own. "My lord," his second-in-command spoke urgently, "we're detecting more launches from the surface. Thousands of them." The second wave of Earth's defense revealed another surprise. Smaller drones, barely larger than humans themselves, swarmed out from hidden bases. They carried boarding equipment. The Empire had never considered the possibility of enemy troops actually boarding their ships. It was considered primitive and suicidal. But humans excelled at primitive and suicidal. "They're cutting through our hulls," came the panicked reports. "They're inside the ships. They're everywhere." Grant watched in horror as ship after ship went dark. The humans had trained for zero-gravity combat inside starships. They moved through Imperial vessels like ghosts, disabling systems, and overwhelming crews who had never trained for close-quarter combat. 6 hours into what was supposed to be a simple conquest, the Imperial fleet was in chaos. A third of their ships were destroyed or disabled. The rest were scattered, their formations broken, their crews demoralized by an enemy that fought like nothing they had ever trained for. Admiral Grant made the hardest decision of his career. He ordered a retreat. As the remaining Imperial ships flowed into hyperspace, the humans celebrated their first victory. But they knew this was just the beginning. The Empire would return, stronger and better prepared. But now they knew something crucial. Humans weren't the primitive species they had assumed. On the Imperial capital, the High Council received Grant's report with stunned silence. They had severely underestimated these humans. Now they faced a terrible choice: admit defeat or escalate the war. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. The real war was about to begin. The Imperial supply ship never saw the attack coming. One moment it was cruising through hyperspace, and the next, it was violently pulled back to normal space. 3 small black ships appeared from nowhere, their hulls covered in material that absorbed all scanning signals. Human vessels. The Imperial captain shouted, but it was too late. The Earth ships, converted from captured Imperial technology, had been waiting in this exact spot. They had learned that Imperial supply routes were predictable. The Empire's ships always took the most efficient path. This predictability became their weakness. Captain Tom Miller watched from his command chair as his small squadron disabled the Imperial vessel. His ship, the Shadow, was one of Earth's new Hunter-class vessels, designed for hit-and-run attacks. Like everything humans built for this war, it ignored traditional space combat rules. Engineering team ready for boarding. His officer reported. 15 minutes to strip what we need and disappear. The humans had become experts at these raids. They took only what they could carry quickly: weapons, technology samples, and navigation data. Each raid taught them more about Imperial technology, which they adapted and improved upon. Across Imperial space, similar attacks happened daily. Small human ships appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before reinforcements arrived. They attacked supply lines, communications relays, and isolated outposts. The Empire's mighty fleet couldn't be everywhere at once. In the Imperial War Council, frustration reached new heights. "How do they keep finding our ships?" demanded Fleet Commander Wilson. "Our routes are encrypted." The answer was simple but humiliating. Humans had turned the Empire's own efficiency against them. Imperial ships used standardized routes and schedules, making them predictable targets. When they tried changing routes, their new paths were often less efficient, causing delays that disrupted the Empire's carefully organized systems. Back on Earth, research teams worked constantly, studying captured Imperial technology. They discovered that Imperial tech was highly advanced but inflexible. It was designed to work perfectly within specific parameters, but struggled to adapt to unexpected situations. Humans took this advanced technology and modified it in ways the Empire never imagined. They made it dirty, crude, and unpredictable, but effective. Imperial engineers would have been horrified by these modifications, but they worked. The Shadow demonstrated this perfectly. Captain Miller's ship used a combination of Imperial and human technology. Its engines were Imperial, but modified to run hotter than designed, making them more powerful but potentially unstable. The weapons were hybrid designs that sacrificed elegance for raw destructive power. "Captain," his sensor officer called out, "Imperial patrol detected. 3 light minutes out." Miller nodded. "Pack up and move out. Leave them something to remember us by." As the boarding team returned, they left behind their signature, Earth's flag painted on the Imperial ship's hull, along with a message: "Humanity says hello." The Shadow and its squadron vanished into hyperspace moments before the Imperial patrol arrived. They would emerge somewhere else, at another carefully chosen ambush point, to strike again. This pattern repeated across the galaxy. Human ships appeared, struck, and disappeared. They never engaged in direct battles where the Empire's superior numbers could overwhelm them. Instead, they fought like guerrilla warriors in space. The Empire's response was predictable. They sent larger patrols, increased security, and fortified their positions. But this only spread their forces thinner, creating more opportunities for human raiders. More concerning for the Empire was the effect these raids had on their subject worlds. Stories spread about the humans who fought the Empire and survived. Some began to wonder, if humans could resist, why couldn't they? On a frontier trading station, alien merchants whispered about human raids. They spoke of Imperial ships found drifting in space, their crews unharmed but their pride shattered. They talked about human messages left behind, encouraging resistance against the Empire. The Empire had expected to fight a conventional war against a primitive species. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that turned their own strengths into weaknesses. Their mighty fleets were being picked apart by an opponent they couldn't catch. In his quarters, Captain Miller reviewed the data from their latest raid. Each piece of information, each captured technology, brought humanity one step closer to true military parity with the Empire. But more importantly, they were teaching the galaxy a lesson. Size and technology weren't everything. Sometimes, the most dangerous enemy was the one who refused to fight by your rules. The guerrilla war in space was just beginning, and humanity was winning. In the Empire's Military Analysis Center, Commander Reed stared at the displays with growing unease. Before him lay the complete military history of Earth, finally translated and compiled. Each page revealed something more terrifying than the last. "Look at this," he said to his staff, pointing at various historical battles. "They've been fighting and killing each other for thousands of years. Every time they develop new technology, they find ways to use it for war." His analysts watched as he displayed battle after battle, war after war. The humans had fought in every possible environment: deserts, oceans, mountains, cities. They had mastered warfare in all its forms. "But here's what truly frightens me," Reed continued. "They learn from every defeat. They adapt, they improve, and they never, ever give up." On the screens, human history played out like a horror story for the Imperial military. While the Empire had spent centuries fighting orderly wars with clear rules, humans had been perfecting the art of absolute warfare. Meanwhile, at an Imperial forward base, the first reports of psychological problems among the troops began to surface. Imperial soldiers were experiencing something new to them: fear. "They're everywhere and nowhere," one soldier reported to his psychiatric evaluator. "You never know where they'll strike. Every shadow might hide a human ship. Every quiet moment might be their next attack." The Empire's soldiers had never faced an enemy like this. Their training prepared them for structured battles, not the constant tension of wondering where the next hit-and-run attack would come from. On Earth, the military commanders were implementing the next phase of their strategy. They had studied the Imperial troops and found their weakness: they couldn't handle uncertainty. General Thompson addressed his strategic command. "The Empire's troops are used to fighting enemies they can see and predict. So we'll become the enemy they can't see or predict. We'll make them fear the dark of space itself." Human ships began leaving behind more than just destroyed Imperial vessels. They started playing alien horror movies on Imperial communication channels. They left behind hack droids that would activate randomly, playing recordings of human laughter. They planted fake distress beacons that broadcast the sounds of battles and screams. The psychological warfare was devastatingly effective. Imperial crews began seeing humans everywhere, even where they weren't. Morale plummeted. Some ships refused to travel without massive escorts. "Sir," an Imperial captain reported to Commander Reed, "my crew is talking about the human ghosts. They say humans can walk through walls, survive in space without suits, and appear out of nowhere. I know it's nonsense, but..." The stories spread. Reed understood. The humans weren't just fighting with weapons. They were fighting with fear. They had turned space itself into their ally. In one particularly effective operation, humans released thousands of small drones designed to look like human spacesuits. These drones floated through high-traffic Imperial routes, some carrying messages, "We're waiting for you." The Empire's response was to increase automation, reducing reliance on frightened organic crews. But humans had anticipated this too. They began targeting the Empire's AI systems with computer viruses designed to make them malfunction in subtle, creepy ways. Imperial ships would detect phantom signals, receive garbled transmissions that sounded like human voices, or find their systems playing Earth war documentaries on random screens. The effect on Imperial morale was devastating. The mighty Empire, which had never known fear, was learning it from a species they had considered primitive. In the Imperial capital, the military leadership struggled to understand what was happening. Their troops were becoming afraid of shadows, jumping at sensor ghosts, and requesting transfers away from human space. "This is unprecedented," Reed reported to the High Council. "They're not just defeating our ships, they're defeating our will to fight. Every victory we achieve comes at the cost of more psychological damage to our forces." The council members shifted uncomfortably. They had expected a simple military campaign. Instead, they had awakened something they didn't understand. A species that had turned warfare into an art form, fear into a weapon. A junior analyst summarized it best in his report. "We thought we were fighting soldiers. Instead, we're fighting the combined military experience of thousands of years of human warfare. They're not just fighting us with weapons. They're fighting us with every dark thought, every fear, every nightmare their species has ever had." The Empire was learning a hard lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun or a ship. It's the psychological warfare that breaks your enemy's spirit before you ever fire a shot. The grand meeting hall of the Imperial Senate was in chaos. Representatives from 100 worlds shouted and argued. At the center of the debate stood Governor James, from a wealthy core world, addressing the assembly. "The humans aren't just fighting our ships anymore," he declared. "They're spreading dangerous ideas throughout our territories. Ideas about freedom, about resistance, about standing up to authority." The evidence was clear. On dozens of Imperial worlds, populations that had been peaceful for centuries were suddenly questioning their place in the Empire. They had seen how humans fought back, and it gave them hope. In the outer regions, 3 Imperial worlds had already declared independence. Their leaders had secretly contacted Earth and received promises of support. The human message was simple but powerful. If we can fight them, so can you. Admiral Grant, now leading the Empire's defensive operations, received reports of growing unrest every day. His fleet was stretched thin, trying to maintain order while still fighting the humans. "Another uprising on Beta Colony," his aide reported. "They're using human tactics, hit and run attacks, guerrilla warfare. They've learned from watching Earth's resistance." The Empire had always maintained control through a combination of military might and the belief that resistance was futile. The humans had shattered that belief. Every successful human raid, every defeated Imperial ship, showed that the Empire wasn't invincible. On the trade world of New Alexandria, Imperial authorities discovered underground networks sharing information about human battle tactics. Local resistance groups studied Earth's military history, learning how to fight against superior forces. The Empire's response was predictable. They cracked down harder, increased security, and punished any sign of rebellion. But these actions only proved the rebels' point. More worlds began to secretly communicate with Earth. In a secure bunker on Earth, the Human Defense Council met with representatives from 15 rebel worlds. The meeting was historic, the first alliance between humans and alien species. "We'll share our technology, our tactics, and our experience," the Earth representative promised. "In return, we need your knowledge of Imperial space and your support in key sectors." The rebels eagerly agreed. They had seen how effective human weapons and strategies could be. More importantly, they had seen how humans never gave up, no matter the odds. Back in the imperial capital, the High Council faced a growing crisis. Their own military was starting to question the war. "We can't fight enemies everywhere," a senior commander protested. "If we crack down on one world, 3 more rebel. The humans have turned our empire against us." The empire had never faced a situation like this. Their military doctrine was designed to fight conventional wars against clear enemies. But now they faced rebellion on multiple fronts, inspired and supported by humans. Even loyal imperial worlds were affected. Their populations watched news of human victories and rebel successes with growing interest. Questions began to surface. Why did the empire need to control everything? Why couldn't worlds govern themselves? On the industrial world of Forge Prime, workers began sabotaging military production, using techniques learned from human resistance fighters. On the agricultural world of Greenhaven, farmers refused to supply imperial forces, organizing peaceful protests that the empire couldn't simply crush without looking like tyrants. The empire's structure was cracking. Centuries of absolute control were being challenged by ideas spread by humans, ideas of freedom, self-determination, and resistance against oppression. In orbit around Earth, human commanders watched their strategy unfold. They had known they couldn't defeat the empire through military might alone. But by showing that resistance was possible, by sharing their knowledge of warfare and rebellion, they had started something much bigger. "The empire is fighting itself now," General Thompson observed. "Every action they take to maintain control only pushes more worlds toward rebellion. They're trapped in a spiral of their own making." The High Council received a classified report that summarized their situation. "The humans have achieved what no species has done before. They've turned our greatest strength, our unity and control, into our greatest weakness. They've shown our subject worlds that resistance is possible, that freedom is worth fighting for. We are no longer just fighting humans. We are fighting an idea, and ideas cannot be destroyed by force." The empire had started this war thinking they would easily crush one primitive species. Instead, they had sparked a revolution that threatened to tear their entire empire apart. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading the change. Deep in a secret research facility on Earth, Dr. Roberts stared at his computer screen with growing excitement. After months of studying captured Imperial technology, his team had found something extraordinary. "Look at this," he pointed to a complex diagram. "Every piece of Imperial tech relies on the same basic power system. It's efficient, advanced, and has one critical flaw." The discovery spread quickly through Earth's military command. Every Imperial ship, weapon, and defensive system used crystalline power cores that operated on identical frequencies. These cores were the Empire's greatest technological achievement, and potentially their greatest weakness. In orbit, Captain Miller of the Shadow received new orders. His ship, along with hundreds of others, would test the theory in what would become the largest coordinated attack in human history. "All ships, prepare for Operation Checkmate," Miller announced to his crew. "Today we find out if we can turn off the Empire's lights." Meanwhile, across Imperial space, the rebel worlds prepared for their part. They had received coded messages from Earth. When the signal came, strike hard at every Imperial facility. The Empire remained unaware of the impending attack. Their leaders were too busy dealing with growing unrest throughout their territories. Intelligence reports warned of increased rebel activity, but no one connected the dots. Admiral Grant stood on his flagship's bridge, reviewing reports of yet another planetary uprising. When the attack began, the first sign was subtle, a slight fluctuation in power readings. Then, across Imperial space, human ships appeared simultaneously near major Imperial facilities. Each carried a device designed by Dr. Roberts' team. "Activate the disruptors," Miller ordered. The devices powered up, emitting precisely calculated energy waves. These waves targeted the exact frequency used by Imperial power cores, creating a cascading resonance effect. Across Imperial space, ships began losing power. Defense systems shut down. Communications went dark. The mighty empire suddenly found its technology turning against itself. What's happening? Grant demanded as his own flagship systems began failing. The humans had done the impossible. They had found a way to disable Imperial technology without destroying it. Ships weren't exploded. They were simply rendered powerless. As Imperial forces struggled to respond, the rebel worlds launched their attacks. They struck at powerless Imperial bases and ships, using weapons and tactics learned from humans. On Earth, military command watched the operation unfold. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Imperial installations falling, fleets drifting powerless in space, entire defensive networks shutting down. Send the second wave, General Thompson ordered. Human ships moved in, boarding disabled Imperial vessels, capturing strategic positions, and securing critical resources. They weren't destroying the Empire's military. They were capturing it. In the Imperial capital, panic spread through the High Council. Reports of catastrophic failures came from every sector. Their mighty fleet, the symbol of Imperial power, was being systematically disabled and captured. How? A council member demanded. How did they find this weakness? The answer was simple. Humans had done what the Empire thought impossible. They had questioned the unquestionable, examined the foundations of Imperial technology, and found the flaw that no one had ever thought to look for. Captain Miller led his boarding team onto an Imperial dreadnought. The ship's crew, unable to resist without functioning weapons or systems, surrendered quickly. "Secure the ship," Miller ordered, "and show them we can be merciful in victory." The Empire's rigid power structure was collapsing. Without their technological advantage, without their ability to project power across space, they could no longer maintain control. In orbit around Earth, General Thompson received the reports with satisfaction. The operation was succeeding beyond their highest expectations, but he knew this wasn't just a human victory. "Send word to our allies," he ordered. "Tell them it's time for the final phase." Across the galaxy, rebel worlds openly declared their independence. Imperial governors, seeing their power stripped away, faced choices: resist and fall, or negotiate and survive. The Empire's defeat wasn't marked by a single massive battle, but by the simultaneous collapse of their ability to maintain control. Their technology, once their greatest strength, had become the key to their downfall. As Imperial ships drifted powerless through space, as rebel worlds celebrated their freedom, as human forces secured strategic positions across the galaxy, one thing became clear: the age of the Empire was ending. A new era was beginning, and humanity had proved itself more than worthy of leading it. 1 year after Operation Checkmate, representatives from 300 formerly Imperial worlds gathered in the newly constructed Galactic Assembly on Earth. The Great Hall, built with a combination of human and alien architecture, symbolized the new era of cooperation. General Thompson, now serving as Earth's diplomatic representative, stood at the podium. Around him sat delegates from every species that had helped overthrow the Empire: former slaves, rebel leaders, and Imperial worlds that had chosen to join the alliance. The Empire's warning to run from humans was right, Thompson began, drawing quiet laughter from the assembly. But not because we were monsters. They should have run because we brought something they feared more than weapons. We brought change. The past year had transformed the galaxy. The Empire's rigid hierarchy had been replaced by a coalition of free worlds. Earth didn't rule this coalition. They were equal partners, sharing technology, culture, and ideas. In orbit above the former Imperial capital, Captain Miller watched from the Shadows Bridge as former Imperial ships, now repurposed, conducted joint exercises with human vessels. The crews were mixed. Humans working alongside aliens, learning from each other. "Never thought I'd see this," his first officer remarked. Former enemies training together. The transition hadn't been perfectly smooth. Some Imperial worlds had resisted change, clinging to the old ways. But they found themselves increasingly isolated as the benefits of cooperation became clear. Earth's technological innovation spread throughout the coalition. Human creativity, combined with alien knowledge, led to breakthroughs that benefited everyone. Worlds that had been exploited for resources under the Empire now thrived as equal trading partners. In the research facilities where Dr. Roberts had discovered the Empire's weakness, human and alien scientists worked together. They weren't just studying technology. They were learning to combine different species' approaches to science and innovation. The Empire's mistake, Roberts explained to a group of alien colleagues, was thinking that control meant strength. They never understood that true strength comes from diversity, from letting different ideas and approaches flourish. The former Imperial High Council chamber, once a place of absolute authority, had been transformed into a museum. Its exhibits showed the history of the Empire's rise and fall, serving as a reminder of the dangers of unchecked power. Admiral Grant, who had survived the Empire's collapse, now served as an advisor to the Coalition's Joint Defense Force. His experience proved valuable in helping former Imperial worlds transition to the new system. "I understand now," he told Thompson during a strategic meeting. "The Empire failed not because humans were stronger, but because you showed us a better way to live." The Coalition faced challenges. Pirates tried to take advantage of the transition period. Some former Imperial commanders went rogue, attempting to carve out their own territories. But the combined forces of Earth and their allies dealt with these threats effectively. More importantly, the Coalition's success attracted attention from beyond the former Empire's borders. Other civilizations, hearing of this new alliance between humans and aliens, sent diplomatic missions to Earth. In the Galactic Assembly, Thompson concluded his speech. "1 year ago, we proved that tyranny could be defeated. But our real victory wasn't military. Our victory was showing the galaxy that different species could work together as equals, that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker." The assembly erupted in applause. Representatives from hundreds of worlds, each with their own culture and history, united in appreciation of how far they had come. On worlds across the galaxy, the changes were visible. Former Imperial centers of power had been transformed into schools, hospitals, and research centers. Trade flourished between worlds that had once been forbidden to communicate. Species that had been enemies under Imperial rule now collaborated on solving common problems. The Empire's warning about humans had been prophetic, but not in the way they intended. Humans hadn't destroyed the galaxy. They had helped free it. Their adaptability, creativity, and determination had shown the way to a better future. As the assembly concluded, Thompson looked out at the gathered representatives. Former enemies now allies. Former slaves now equals. The Empire had warned others to run from humans. Instead, the galaxy had learned to run with them, toward a future brighter than any single species could have created alone. The first time war with humans had ended, but humanity's contribution to galactic civilization was just beginning. The end.